Howdy folks, and welcome back to Ruthless Metal. In today's video, we're going to rank Switzerland's second most popular extreme metal band, Coroner. And they are a progressive or technical thrash metal band. These guys were friends with Celtic Frost, and Tom G. Warrior appeared on their 1986 death cult demo. The album debuted the following year, and after 4 more albums, Coroner disbanded in 1996. And these guys are one of my absolute favorite thrash metal bands of all time. And their technical brilliance were on a level above most other thrash bands. So if you for some reason haven't checked out Coroner yet, then you're in for a real treat. And as always, we're going to rank all of their studio albums from the worst to the best. So let's get right into today's ranking. In my opinion, the worst Coroner album is Grin from 1993, and this was their last studio album to date. Well, they did release a self-titled compilation in 95 that included a few new tracks, but we won't count that album here. There are however some rumors of a new Coroner album coming out, but not much is known about it at the time of the recording of this video. Anyhow, I think that Grin is the band's most progressive sounding album. It's also their least thrashy, and I might be a bit biased here, since I'm much more into thrash than prog. And this album focuses more on heavy and progressive parts than the insanely fast and technical songs of early Coroner. And there are a few alternative or industrial sounding moments on this album that I really don't like, but overall Grin is a solid album. Tommy T. Barron, the band's guitarist, delivers some amazing guitar work here. The soloing is actually insane on this album, but there's just too many songs in that mid-tempo region. But compared to what a lot of the other thrash metal bands were doing in '93, I think that Grin was at least an attempt to push music in a more technical prog metal direction, instead of dumbing it down to reach the mainstream audiences like so many of their peers. But on the other hand, this is the only Coroner album that I don't spin on a regular basis, so next. In 4th place, the Mental Vortex from 91, and this is a much thrashier effort than what Grin ever was. But I think that Coroner was becoming more progressive by each release, and since this was their 4th studio album, it is perhaps leaning more towards prog than thrash. And I ranked Mental Vortex as one of my top 10 thrash metal albums of 91. So even if it's ranked as my number 4 here, it's still a great album, and absolutely worth diving into if you haven't heard it already. I mean, Chuck Schuldiner of Death was a huge Coroner fan, and I think you can hear some resemblance between this album and an album like Symbolic, for example. Divine Step, Conspector Mortis, Sirens and Semtex Revolution are 3 tracks worth checking out if you haven't heard this record. I do, however, think that they could have skipped the Beatles cover, I Want You, She's So Heavy, but I guess it was the label that forced them to put that song on the album. And it got some airplay on MTV's Headbangers Ball back in the day, even if I think it was the worst track on the album. And Mental Vortex has a slightly more mechanical and controlled feel to it than the previous 3 albums, I think. Mental Vortex is indeed a fitting title for this album, because if you ever get stuck in one, my suspicion is that it would sound something like this album. The guitar work is just excellent here, the bass and the drumming too. Remember that these guys were just a trio, but they kinda sound like a 5-piece band. And this is pretty much a 5 out of 5 record, or 4.7 perhaps, so we can get some wiggle room for their other masterpieces. Next. In 3rd place, we have Punishment for Decadence that came out in 1988, and this was the band's 2nd studio album, and it features the track Masked Jackal that the band recorded a music video for that also got some airplay on MTV's Headbangers Ball. So it's one of the band's biggest hit songs, I guess we could say, and I think it's a great song. And speaking of great songs, one of the greatest instrumental metal songs of all time are on this album. It's called Arc-lite, and it's just a triumphant achievement, so Go and listen to Arc-lite if you haven't, and thank me down below. I also love Absorbed and Skeleton on Your Shoulder, but I do think that the B-side here is slightly weaker and less memorable, and that's the reason why I've ranked this album in 3rd place, despite having some top-class songs on it. The album ends with the Jimi Hendrix cover Purple Haze, and it's another one of those not so necessary songs. But Tommy T. Barron certainly outplays Hendrix here. And at the time, Coroner pushed the limits of what was possible within the thrash metal genre, with technical prowess and just a next level musicianship overall. And I do think that Coroner bridged the gap between bands like Voivod and Watchtower, with the even more extreme death prog wave that followed with bands like Death and Atheist. Next. In 2nd place we have No More Color from 1989, and this is another perfect masterpiece. I do think that both their debut album Rest in Peace and Punishment for Decadence had higher peaks, but No More Color is a more consistent album. But there are certainly some peaks here as well, like Die By My Hand, Read My Scars, d.o.a. and Tunnel of Pain. Heck, even the outro Last Entertainment is excellent. And it was on the Thrashing the East home video that was filmed in East Berlin after the fall of the Berlin Wall. And besides Coroner, Kreator, Tankard and Sabbath also appeared in that video. And it was through that video that I discovered the band, and it's an absolute must watch if you're a thrash metal fan, since it's one of the coolest thrash videos out there, and I can link to it down in the video description, so that you guys can check it out if you for some reason haven't. I do think that No More Color had a slightly more mechanical feel to it than their first 2 records, and the production values have actually gone up a bit, even if that was never an issue of theirs. And Martin Eric Ain of Celtic Frost fame wrote the lyrics to the song Why It Hurts. And Coroner and Celtic Frost always had close ties together, ever since Tom G. Warrior landed his vocals to their Death Cult demo, and both bands being from the same city of Zürich. Next. And the number 1 Coroner record is, in my opinion, their 1987 debut album RIP, or Rest in Peace. And this is Coroner's most intense album. Tommy Weatherly, or Tommy T. Barron as he was called, was just unleashed upon the world here. His guitar work is just beyond impressive, and he's without a doubt one of my favorite guitarists of all time. Rest in Peace is, in my opinion, one of the most impressive debuts in metal history. This is like Mozart and Beethoven on crack, and the band's technical skills is just otherworldly. And there is this slight gothic tint to this album that I do like. There's just a ton of great songs here, like Reborn Through Heat. It's one of their absolute best, I think. The instrumental track Nosferatu is one of the best instrumentals of all time. It's absolutely flawless, just like Arc-lite from their 2nd album. Coroner really had the talent to write great instrumentals, kinda like Metallica with the Call of Cthulhu and Orion. But the musicianship here is just on a higher level in terms of technical prowess. And that would be a cool idea for a future video, great thrash instrumentals. So let me know down below if you guys would be interested in something like that. And if you're not familiar with Coroner's music, then I would say that their label mates Kreator were somewhat similar in style, but this was also a bit more wild and experimental. But certainly on the same level as Kreator classics like Terrible Certainty and Extreme Aggression. And worth noting here is that both bands also did a tour together in the fall of 1989. And this was another one of those hard rankings for me, since I consider their first 3 albums to be more or less flawless masterpieces. And Mental Vortex is pretty close to perfection as well. All I knew going into this rank is that I hold Grin as their weakest release. And the thrash kids often talk about Metallica, Testament, Kreator and Slayer and such, but they often miss the band that outplayed all of them, Coroner. Tommy T. Barron is one of the greatest guitarists in metal, and Ron Broder's bass work is also flawless. And I like his gruffy Tom G. Warrior meets Mille Petrosa style vocals. And let's not forget about their drummer Marky Edelman, because this lineup stayed intact throughout all of their releases. But since they remained somewhat anonymous throughout their career, they decided to disband in 1996. They did, however, make a comeback in around 2010 with the original trio back, but Edelman decided to leave the band in 2014 due to a disinterest in recording new material. Diego Rapacchietti then replaced Edelman, and now we can just hope that they bring out some new material as well, because it will probably be my third most anticipated release after the new King Diamond and Merciful Fate albums that we waited forever to hear. But now I'm curious to hear about your opinions on Coroner's discography. Which one is your favorite Coroner album? And if you're familiar with most of their discography, feel free to rank it down below. And don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment so that the YouTube gods will send this video to every metal fan out there. And don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel. And if you want to support my work, you can always grab a shirt at the Ruthless Metal Store. Or why not become a Patreon? It's from $3 per month, and you'll get access to my Discord server where you can vote for your favorite metal albums whenever we're doing an album vote. And I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Spotify, so check all the links listed down below. And let me know whose discography I should rank in the next episode of Rank 'Em All. And that's all for now, so thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.